The routine injection Marcus Chon floated through the sterile corridors of Medical Station Helix 7, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal flooring in steady rhythm. The dying red giant beyond the viewports cast everything in an amber glow, making the pristine white walls seem almost alive. He'd volunteered for this assignment 3 months on an interspecies medical research facility, partly for the generous hazard pay, but mostly because he genuinely believed in the mission. The Zephyrian Collective had approached humanity with open arms 5 years ago, offering medical knowledge that could revolutionize treatment for dozens of human ailments. In exchange, humans provided genetic samples and participated in compatibility studies. It seemed like the perfect partnership. Subject H-47, please report to Bay 7, announced the station's AI in its eerily perfect human accent. Marcus straightened his blue jumpsuit and headed toward the medical wing. The Zephyrians he'd met so far were remarkably humanoid tall, graceful beings with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer with its own light. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, completely black, but somehow conveyed warmth despite their alien appearance. Bay 7's doors hissed open, revealing a single figure hunched over a medical console. Nurse Veltara looked up as he entered, her elongated fingers dancing across holographic displays. She was younger than most Zephyrians he'd encountered, perhaps equivalent to a human in their early 30s, with a characteristic silver skin, marked by intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. Marcus Chun, yes? Her voice carried that musical quality all Zephyrians possessed, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Please sit. Today, we administer the final vaccination in your series. He settled onto the examination table, rolling up his sleeve. Just like the others? Something flickered across her features, too quick for him to interpret. Yes, exactly like the others. The injection gun felt cold against his arm. The familiar sharp pinch lasted only a second, but something felt different this time. The liquid that entered his bloodstream seemed to burn, spreading warmth up his arm and across his chest. Is it supposed to feel warm? Marcus asked, touching the injection site. Veltara's black eyes widened slightly. She quickly busied herself with disposing of the injection cartridge, her movements suddenly urgent. Some warmth is normal. You should rest now. Return to your quarters. As Marcus stood to leave, a wave of dizziness washed over him. Colors seemed brighter, more vivid. He could hear conversations from the corridor outside, with startling clarity words in both human languages, and the melodic tones of Zephyrian speech. Nurse Veltara? He turned back, but she was already moving toward the door. Rest, she repeated, not meeting his eyes. Everything will be explained soon. The bay door sealed behind him with a finality that made his newly sensitized hearing detect the subtle electromagnetic lock engaging. Something was very wrong. The awakening Marcus's quarters felt like a prison cell as he paced the narrow confines, his body betraying him with each passing hour. The warmth from the injection had spread through his entire system, and now his skin felt like it was crawling with electricity. When he looked in the mirror, faint silver lines had begun appearing along his forearms, delicate patterns that pulsed with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. Sleep brought no relief. His dreams were filled with memories that weren't his own. Vast crystal cities under purple skies, beings of light communicating through pure thought, and ancient ceremonies involving golden serums that transformed the worthy into something more than mortal. He woke gasping, the taste of ozone sharp on his tongue. By the third day, the changes were undeniable. His reflection showed eyes that had developed flecks of silver around the iris. His hearing had become so acute that he could distinguish individual heartbeats from crew members 3 decks away. The Zephyrian patterns on his skin were now clearly visible, forming intricate geometric designs that seemed to tell a story he couldn't yet understand. When Veltara finally appeared at his door. Her usual composure had cracked. Her silver skin had dulled to an ashen gray, and her hands trembled as she activated a privacy shield around his quarters. "What did you do to me?" Marcus demanded, holding up his transformed arms. She closed her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. "I gave you essence of Axiom, the royal transmutation. It's been forbidden for over 3 centuries. Forbidden? Why? Because it was never meant for aliens. The last time it was used on a non-Zephyrian, it created the Void Walker's beings. Of such power, they nearly destroyed both our species and several others before they vanished into deep space." She met his gaze, her black eyes reflecting profound regret. "I hoped you might be different." Marcus felt a chill despite. The fire in his veins. "Different how?" "Your genetic structure. During the preliminary tests, I discovered markers that shouldn't exist in humans' ancient sequences that match our oldest texts. You're not entirely human, Marcus. Somewhere in your lineage, there was contact with my people long before official." First contact. The room suddenly felt smaller. Marcus could sense the electromagnetic fields of every device around them, could feel the gravitational pull of the dying star beyond the station's hull. Power hummed through his transformed cells like a living thing. "The Council of Axiarchs has been monitoring all human subjects," Veltara continued urgently. "They'll discover what I've done within hours. When they do, they'll kill us both, you for existing, and me for creating an abomination." "Then why?" Marcus asked. "Why risk everything?" Her silver skin brightened slightly, patterns of her own beginning to glow. "Because I've seen what's coming. The Zephyrian Empire isn't interested in partnership. They're preparing for conquest. Humanity needs someone who can stand against them. Someone who bridges both species." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights bathed the corridor beyond his quarters, and Marcus could hear the distinctive harmonic chanting that meant Zephyrian security forces were mobilizing. "They know," Veltara breathed. "We have to run, now." The hunt begins. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for Marcus's shoulders, but his enhanced senses made navigating the darkness trivial. Behind him, Veltara moved with the fluid grace of her species, her silver skin providing just enough bioluminescence to see by. "The docking bay," she whispered, her breath visible in the cold, recycled air. "There's a scout ship in Bay 12 that I've been preparing. It has enough supplies to reach the neutral zone." Marcus paused as footsteps echoed through the station's corridors below them. The search parties were getting closer, and he could hear their conversations, clearly now discussions of the contaminated human and purification protocols that made his blood run cold. "Why help me?" he asked as they crawled through another junction. "You've thrown away everything." Veltara's patterns dimmed. "My brother was part of the original expedition that made first contact with your species. He sent me recordings, not the sanitized versions the Council approved, but the real ones. He spoke of humans with such hope, such potential for growth and change. The Council had him executed for seditious sympathy. They emerged into a utility room, 3 levels below the main docking facilities. Marcus's transformed senses immediately detected the presence of multiple Zephyrians moving through the station with military precision. But there was something else. Other humans, their heartbeats elevated with fear and confusion. "They're rounding up all the human volunteers," he realized. "Standard contamination protocol," Veltara confirmed grimly. "Anyone who might have been exposed to you will be processed." The weight of responsibility crashed down on Marcus. 12 other humans had volunteered for this mission, believing they were part of a peaceful scientific exchange. Now they would die because of what he'd become. The patterns on his skin flared brighter, and suddenly he could sense the electromagnetic signatures of every living being on the station. The Zephyrians registered as bright silver flames, while The humans appeared as warm golden lights. But there was something else, a deeper level of perception that showed him the connections between all conscious minds. "The other humans," he said, his voice carrying new harmonics that made Valtara's eyes widen. "I can feel them. They're in detention level 5. Impossible. We can't reach them without." Marcus stood, power coursing through his transformed cells. The metal walls around them began to resonate with a low harmonic that made dust fall from the ceiling. "I'm not human anymore, remember? And I'm not Cepharian either. I'm something new." The lights in the utility room flickered as he reached out with senses he was still learning to control. Throughout the station, he could feel the electronic systems responding to his will security locks, cycling open. Communication arrays retranging. Their frequencies, even the artificial gravity fluctuating in response to his emotional state. "Marcus, stop," Valtara urged. "You're announcing yourself to every sensor on the station." But it was too late. Alarms blared with new intensity, and the harmonic chanting of Zephyrian forces shifted to combat frequency. Heavy footsteps pounded through the corridors, accompanied by the whine of charging energy weapons. "Good," Marcus said, his eyes now completely silver. "Let them come." They wanted to see what their forbidden serum could create. He turned to Valtara, his face set with grim determination. "How many humans are in detention?" 11. "But Marcus, you can't. Watch me." Transformation's price the detention level erupted into chaos as Marcus descended through the station's central shaft, his transformed body moving in ways that defied human limitation. Energy beams crisscrossed the air around him, but his enhanced reflexes made them seem sluggish, predictable. He could feel each shot coming seconds before it fired, read the electromagnetic patterns in the Zephyrian weapons like an open book. Valtara struggled to keep pace, her own patterns flaring as she used her species' natural abilities to interface with the station's systems. Blast doors slammed shut behind them, buying precious seconds as the security forces tried to reorganize. "Cell Block 7, she called out, her voice strained. "But Marcus, there are 12 Axiarchs between us and them. These aren't ordinary security. They're the Council's personal guard." Marcus paused at the entrance to the detention level, feeling the presence of the humans trapped beyond. Their fear and confusion washed over him like a physical weight, but underneath it, he sensed something else, a resonance, faint but unmistakable. The same genetic markers that had made him compatible with the royal transmutation existed in varying degrees throughout the human population. "They chose us," he realized aloud. The Zephyrians didn't pick random volunteers. They were looking for specific genetic patterns. The blast doors ahead split open, revealing the Axiarch's 12 figures in gleaming silver armor that pulsed with the same patterns as their skin. Their weapons weren't the standard energy rifles of the security forces, but elegant crystalline constructs that hummed with barely contained power. The lead Axiarch raised his weapon, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that bypassed the ears entirely, resonating directly in Marcus's transformed consciousness. "Abomination. You carry the sacred essence without the trials of worthiness. Your existence violates the covenant of Axiom." "Your covenant is built on lies," Marcus replied, surprised by the authority in his own voice. "You've been studying humans for centuries, haven't you? Long before first contact. Looking for the descendants of whatever connection existed between our species." The Axiarch's weapon flared brighter. "The ancient dispersal was a mistake that will not be repeated. The hybrid bloodlines will be cleansed." Marcus felt the truth hit him like a physical blow. The dying star beyond the station, this wasn't a research facility at all. It was an extermination center, positioned where human rescue ships would never find the evidence. Behind him, Valtara gasped as the full horror of the situation became clear. "They never intended to let any of you leave." The Axiarchs opened fire simultaneously, 12 beams of pure energy converging on Marcus's position. But instead of dodging, he stood firm, raising his hands as the patterns on his skin blazed with silver fire. The energy beams struck him and simply stopped, absorbed into the growing network of lights beneath his transformed flesh. The royal transmutation wasn't just about creating super soldiers, he said, his voice now carrying the same harmonics as the Axiarch's. It was about creating bridges between species. Your ancestors knew that evolution required cooperation, not conquest. His skin erupted in brilliant patterns of light that spread beyond his body, flowing through the air like living electricity. Where the energy touched the station's walls, metal began to sing with new frequencies. Emergency systems activated, but instead of alarms, they broadcast the sound of his enhanced heartbeat, a rhythm that seemed to call to something deep in both human and Zephyrian biology. The Axiarchs stepped back as their weapons began to resonate with the same frequency. Their crystalline constructs cracking under the harmonic pressure. Impossible, their leader breathed. The essence cannot achieve convergence without what? Marcus stepped forward, his transformation reaching a new stage as silver. Light began to pour from his eyes. Without your permission? Your control? The detention cells throughout the level suddenly burst open, their electronic locks overwhelmed by the electromagnetic pulse radiating from Marcus's transformed body. 11 confused and terrified humans stumbled into the corridor, but as his light touched them, their expressions changed from fear to wonder. "What's happening to me?" whispered Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a xenobiologist from Earth. Silver lines were beginning to appear on her arms. "Evolution," Marcus replied. "The real kind." Beyond the crimson void, the scout ship Convergence streaked away from the dying station as explosions bloomed behind them like deadly flowers. Marcus stood at the viewport, his transformed hands steady on the controls, despite never having piloted a Zephyrian vessel before. The knowledge seemed to flow directly from the ship's bioneural interface into his enhanced consciousness. Behind him, 11 other humans were undergoing various stages of transformation. The royal transmutation hadn't affected them as dramatically as it had. Marcus's unique genetic markers made him more compatible with the ancient serum, but each of them was changing, developing the silver patterns and enhanced abilities that bridged the gap between species. Veltara monitored their vital signs from the medical bay, her own patterns dimmed with exhaustion and worry. "The station's destruction will be blamed on a reactor malfunction," she said quietly. "The Council will claim you all died in the explosion." "Good," Marcus replied, his voice carrying new harmonics that made the ship's crystalline components resonate in sympathy. "Let them think we're dead. It'll give us time to prepare." Dr. Walsh floated over to them, her movements still awkward. In the low gravity, but improving as her enhanced physiology adapted. "Prepare for what? We can't go back to Earth like this. They'll think we're the advanced scouts of an invasion." Marcus turned from the viewport, his silver eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. Through the growing network of consciousness that connected all the transformed humans, he could feel their fears, their hopes, their growing understanding of what they'd become. "We're not going back to Earth," he said. "At least, not yet. First, we need to find the others." Veltara looked up from her instruments. "Others?" "The descendants of the ancient dispersal. Humans with the genetic markers scattered across dozens of worlds." Marcus moved to the navigation console, his fingers dancing over controls that were designed for Zephyrian physiology, but somehow felt natural to him now. "The Council has been hunting them for centuries, but they've been hiding, waiting." The ship's long-range sensors suddenly lit up with activity. 3 massive Zephyrian cruisers were moving to intercept them, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to sterilize entire worlds. "They're not taking any chances," Veltara observed. Her silver-skinned PALING. Marcus smiled, and the expression carried an otherworldly confidence that made the air around him shimmer. Neither are we. He reached out through the ship's bio-neural network, feeling his consciousness expand beyond the confines of his physical form. The Convergence wasn't just a ship, it was a living entity, its crystalline components grown rather than manufactured. And like all Zephyrian technology, it responded to the same patterns that governed their biology. The pursuing cruisers suddenly found their targeting systems failing as harmonic interference flooded their sensor arrays. Navigation computers reset. Themselves, weapons powered down, and life support systems began broadcasting the rhythm of a human heartbeat throughout their corridors. Impossible, Wraith, the captain of the lead cruiser, his voice crackling over the communication channels. No one can interface with our systems without neural implants. Marcus's response echoed through every speaker on all three ships simultaneously. You gave me the royal transmutation. I can interface with anything that was ever touched by Zephyrian consciousness, including your ships, including your crew. The patterns on his skin flared brighter as he reached deeper into the enemy vessels. Systems. But instead of sabotage, he began broadcasting something else: memories extracted from the essence of Axiom. Genetic memories that showed the truth about the ancient dispersal. Images flooded the minds of every Zephyrian aboard the cruisers. Their ancestors working alongside humans to explore the galaxy. Hybrid children who carried the best traits of both species. A golden age of cooperation that ended only when fear and prejudice divided the two peoples. The Council has been lying to you, Marcus continued, his voice now carrying the authority of the ancient Axiom themselves. Humanity isn't your enemy. We're your family. One by one, the weapons systems on the pursuing ships powered down. Not from sabotage, but from choice. As Zephyrian crews remembered what their species had once been, the Convergence disappeared into hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo of transformed humans toward a future where evolution would not be limited by the boundaries between species. Behind them, three Zephyrian cruisers drifted silent in the crimson light of the dying star, their crews struggling to understand a truth that would change the galaxy forever. Marcus Chon was no longer human, but he was still himself, and he carried within his transformed consciousness the hopes of two species reaching toward a shared destiny among the stars dot in the medical bay. Valtara smiled for the first time since the transformation began. Her brother would have been proud. The end